and welcome back to the kitchen. I've been on kind of an amp building spree, and when I work on amps it's tight working in my normal work area that I call Fuzz Lab. So I moved stuff into the kitchen, and I was wrapping up some leftover projects, and I wanted to shoot a quick video and show you something I slapped together I think is pretty neat. I got to give you a little background story. As always, it started a long time ago. So what happened was we got a new synthesizer. My daughter plays keyboards in our family band, and her old amp was, I really didn't like it, so I ordered a 2x15 watt amp board. This company called Shure Electronics. It's not the Shure microphone company. It's a Chinese company, and they make these amplifier modules, and the boards are even more affordable. The board was $15 for a 30 watt amp, 2x15 stereo amp, and it turned out it wasn't quite loud enough. Now if I used, we put a booster on it, coming out of the keyboard, a little boost circuit. We had two of those because it's stereo, and it was loud enough, but it clipped a little bit on some of the louder notes, and I didn't want to mess around with having to plug in two pedals just for boost on a keyboard. So I went ahead. It was $18 for the 2x25 watt, which either they were out of them or I didn't see them. I would have ordered that the first time, but I could not find them. And then after I put the whole thing together and we ran it a couple of times, played a gig with it, and now I got the 2x25 going. So I had this 2x15 board. I'm like, what can I do with that? I really don't want to implement it into our setup because we're all running 50 and my wife runs 100 watt for her bass rig. So what I did, I got a couple of these old chassis. It's a data switch for a printer, and it would have a big knob in the back, and you could have two computers with the old style, parallel connection. Plug that in, and you could, clunk, switch it over, and share a printer. And so you find these quite a bit at resale, Goodwill, Salvation Army. You'll find these for a couple bucks. So the first one, I made a signal generator, boop, and this is what I use instead of playing my guitar through devices when I'm troubleshooting, when I'm building them. And I love this thing. I use it all the time. So I had an extra chassis, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to put that amp board in that chassis and make myself a little mini amp head. And it was such a fun project. Everything worked out fantastic. And it had a couple little bumps in the road due to me being an idiot as usual. But it's a cool little mini amp. I'm sure we're going to use it. I've already got a bunch of ideas what I can use this for, even for little test amp type applications. But it has a power switch here. One of the key elements that I wanted to try to implement with this design was versatility. So on the front there is an 1/8" stereo input jack. If you happen to have an iPod and you use a cable to connect it, these are kind of popular cables nowadays. They have two stereo 1/8" male connections. One would go into your iPod and one would go into the amp, and there you go. So it's got one of those on the front panel. There's blue LED. I got a volume knob, and that just comes off the inputs. All the inputs just go to this stereo pot and then go into the input of the amplifier board. It's fused. I got a 3 amp fuse in there. That's probably might be a little high. The power, it's a 2 amp power supply I'm running. The amp runs on 12 volts. And I got this little handy handle. Not so handy as it turns out. And then in the back there is RCA input, 1/4" stereo input. Here's the DC input, 12 volt, 2 amp I'm running right now. 1/4" output. And then I've got some spring terminal, so hook up whatever speakers you want. I didn't do any RCA outputs because I figure, I got banana, or the little adapter jacks if I'm going to go with those. But taking a look inside, with all of the connectors that are in the back, it was a little bit tight in here. So I mounted the amplifier to the top of the chassis. And the wiring's pretty neat. It's not too messy in there. You can take a look at that. I've got some close-up photos. I'll be switching over to some close-ups as I run my mouth here. It might be easier for me to just show you some of the pictures that I took earlier. But points of interest, not much. I mean, here's the amp board. I used some Loctite here holding the nuts on that hold it together. Probably difficult for you to see, but I did put a heatsink in there. I went through some old computer power supplies and I found, well, that heatsink was actually on some kind of a card, peripheral card that I got, some old like ATA connection card. I don't even know what it was, but I did. It says no heatsink necessary on there, and I went ahead and heatsinked it. There's RCA inputs for the amplifier, but I just soldered some coaxial style shielded wire for the input rather than have to cut another set of RCA jacks. I do have more than enough, but I figure why cut them, just solder them in there, you know. And then the output, they have, there's spots for banana lugs you could put in, or there is the little screw crimp terminals, and that's what I ended up using. But these Shure amp boards, I can't tell you how much I like them. The 100-watt one that I got for my wife's system, her bass rig, that plays our drums and obviously my wife's bass. That's 100 watt. It runs off 24 volts, 2 sealed lead acid batteries. Well, great thing about these boards, I mean, you can get, if you're not really a hacker type, but you still want to get yourself a nice hi-fi cheap amp, they sell a module with the volume knob on it, you know, and it's RCA in and then spring terminals out. They're fantastic. Those are a little more expensive. You know, they're about $50 and up for those, but the actual board, if you can take a little time and throw it in a chassis or mount it inside the speaker box, you save a lot of money doing it that way. The 100-watt amp module was $28 for a 100-watt amp, and it's got a big aluminum heatsink with a fan on it too. Really nice design, and we've put that amp to the test. I mean, seriously, you know, 8-hour plus sessions cranking it, and no problem so far. So they have automatic shut off. They're protected. They've got all kinds of features built into the amplifiers. They run at 88% efficiency, so there isn't a real lot of heat generated. That means the batteries last a real long time. If I was trying to do what we're doing with conventional amplifier design, the batteries they would be conking out just an hour or two into the session. The only way we're able to make this music at the Woods is because of these new amplifier design, these TD, TA. They're Class D amplifiers, and they're 88–90% efficient. So thank goodness for these cheap Chinese amp boards. You can get them like at Parts Express. There's different places that I choose to order them from China. Wait a little longer on the shipping, but you save a few bucks. So I guess I probably will do a little bit of a slideshow showing some close-ups in the pictures. This amp, like I said, you know, I'm going to be using it for quieter jams if we want to like play in the living room or go on the patio, and I don't want to use a full, you know, 50-watt amp. I've got this thing, you know, we could downscale it a little bit. This is going to be a test amp I use for whatever. I may end up doing a permanent installation for it. We'll see. But for right now, oh, and it's handy. I mean, you always, for me, I do a lot of stuff with audio, so it's always like, I seem to need a little, like, wouldn't that be nice if I didn't have to drag something out and set it all up? You know, there is a little bit of setup with this. It's got an external power supply, but I like it. I really do. This thing is groovy. So I'm gonna break now. Thank you for checking out my channel. If you like this sort of thing, you want to learn a little bit more, or you know a lot more than me, which probably is the case, go ahead and subscribe, comment. I appreciate all the views and subscribes. I'm going to be doing more music videos, and when the weather gets nasty, I'm going to start getting back more into doing projects. But for the summertime, when the weather's nice, pretty much going to be making music with the family. That's why you're not going to see much activity on the channel. But thank you very much once again, and I'm going to take a break now. I'm going to turn this thing on. You can hear some music come through it. I can't, yeah, it's like midnight, so I'm not going to be cranking it up, but just so you get an idea that the thing actually works. So check it out.